Close brace. For JavaScript developers, by JavaScript developers. This is a bit of a cleanup episode. We're going to switch app.js over to ES7 just for consistency, since we'll be writing everything else using new language features. Then we're going to install node.mon, and then we're going to set up our API directory on our routes folder. Let's get to it. First part's easy. We're going to go through and change our vars to const and let. Actually, entirely const. Open app.js. I like to just multi-select in Sublime using Command or Control D. Now, you may be wondering why line 28 is a const even though we're adding something to the object on line 29. The reason for this is because const objects are only immutable, which means they can't be changed at the top level. So for example, you can't say const user equals name Joe Smith, age 24, and then later do this in the code. User equals name Ted Smith, age 36. Because that's replacing the entire object with a brand new object. You can change the properties though, so you could do user.name equals Ted Smith, user.age equals 36. And that'd work. I know it seems like it's splitting hairs if you can replace an object's entire set of properties, but as far as JavaScript is concerned, it's a very different process. A quick side note about const and let. They have different scope than var, and there are occasions where we'll still want to use var. For example, this code would not work because var's scope falls through into the if block, so you'd get an error about assigning the variable twice. This code, however, would work. However, it's important to understand that despite having the same name, those are two different variables. Outside of that if block, if you console log user count, you will always get 650. Inside the if, you'd get 651. This is important to understand and also hammers home why you'd want to be careful with variable names, because things can get confusing. Alright, let's go back to app.js and convert the two functions in this file to arrow functions. Again, we're not messing with the scope of this in these functions, so we don't have to convert them. But my feeling is that, in general, the best way to learn this stuff is to see it a lot and work with it a lot. Helps drill it into your brain. Or at least that's what works for me. So we'll convert line 27. And line 34. Alright, we're good here. Save the file. Switch to your terminal or command prompt. And kill our server. We're going to install a terrific program called node.mon that will make it so we don't have to manually restart our server every time we make a change to our JavaScript and want to see it reflected on the site. To do this, we type yarn global add node.mon. Hit enter and watch it go. We'll eventually want to set node.mon up to ignore some files. We don't need it restarting our node server every time we change client-side JS, for example, but we'll deal with that later. For now, just type node.mon npm start. That'll launch our server again. Now let's make a quick change to routes/index.js just to see things in action. Change the title on line 6 from music list to music list alpha. Make sure to save the file. Then if we check in our terminal, we'll see that node.mon caught the change and restarted the server. Now refresh localhost 3000 and note that our title has changed without us having to manually restart the server. Oh yeah, that's the good stuff. Alright, let's configure our API directory. This doesn't really involve much up front. We're doing it here more to show how to add a route in Express than because it's a necessary step. Back to Sublime Text. So first off, make an API folder as a subdirectory of your routes directory. There's about 100 ways to do this. I'm just going to use Sublime. Then I'm going to make a new file in /API called index.js. In this file, we'll want to start with 3 lines that will be in all of our files. Const express equals require express. Const router equals express dot router, make sure to capitalize, and module.exports equals router. Again, those first 2 lines initialize the route. The final line exports it for use in our app, and it's good practice to make sure that these are always the first and last lines of the file, no matter what comes between them. You could theoretically put function declarations underneath the export line, since JavaScript parses them first regardless of order, which is why you can use functions defined at the bottom of a file and code at the top. But I still prefer to make sure the export line is the last thing in the file. Okay, let's make this route do something and then hook our app up to it. Between those lines, write the following code. Router.get / rec res next arrow res.json text music list API test. This is just sending a basic JSON response as a test. Let's make it work. Save the file, open app.js, find line 8, and below that add this line. Const API equals require dot / routes / API / index. Then find line 25, and below it add this line. app.use / API API. That API variable is of course the one we defined on line 9 a second ago. Right here. Save the file, and we're done. Our API is connected to the app and ready for testing. Of course, we've only built a single HTTP GET response, but that's fine for now. We'll also want to eventually lock the API down so it's only accessible by music list and not the general public, but that's another tutorial. For now, let's go check out the API response by navigating to localhost 3000 / API. Well, we've run into a problem. Let's check NodeMon and see what happened. Aha! Welcome to the first broken tutorial because I typed something wrong. There will probably be more of these. We don't want app.user, we want app.use. Save. Note that NodeMon has restarted again and is correctly working this time. And now our API is responding with our text. So we're all set. Our API is sending JSON. We'll be building more routes and responses shortly, but that's all for this tutorial. See you next time.